Our governments will be spending, rightly, a great deal of money to make our citizens more secure, to make the world more secure, to work with our allies to make the world more secure. Countries like Germany, Canada, partnership with the European Union can provide stability and prosperity for our citizens.
There had been 4 contenders in the running: a German-Norwegian consortium, South Korean company, a Spanish and a Swedish company. Today we learned that field has narrowed to just 2. The German-Norwegian consortium ThyssenKrupp and the South Korean company Hanwha Ocean.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into a decision that almost feels like a secret Canada has been keeping from its closest ally. For decades, Washington has been the default partner for any major defense deal. But this time, Ottawa has quietly said no to American nuclear subs and instead turned to Europe and Asia, shortlisting Germany's TKMS and South Korea's Hanwha Ocean. It's not just about picking a new supplier. Canada is deliberately choosing diesel-electric submarines over the nuclear-powered option pushed by the US, and that choice carries weight far beyond technology. The Canadian Patrol Submarine Project could cost at least 60 billion Canadian dollars for up to 12 vessels, by far one of the most expensive defense undertakings in the nation's history. So here's the question. Is this Canada's first real step toward defense independence, or is it a gamble that could pull the country into untested waters? Before we begin, hit that like button if you're finding this eye-opening. It really helps us beat the algorithm. And that brings us to the real shock hiding beneath this story: the price tag. If Canada does move forward, the Patrol Submarine Project is expected to cost at least 60 billion Canadian dollars, or roughly 44 billion US dollars. That figure alone would make it the largest defense procurement in the country's history, far exceeding anything Ottawa has attempted before. To put it into perspective, even the controversial F-35 fighter jet program, once considered the ultimate test of Canada's defense budget, was initially projected at 19 billion and later revised to somewhere between 27 and 33 billion. By comparison, the submarine plan almost doubles that range. This level of spending represents more than just a line item in the federal budget. It signals a potential transformation of how Canada approaches defense, positioning the military as a cornerstone of industrial and economic planning. Analysts suggest that if carried through, the project could nudge Canada closer to its ambitious target of raising defense expenditures to 5% of GDP by 2035, a figure that would have seemed unimaginable just a decade ago. For a country long criticized for underspending on defense, the shift would mark a dramatic turn. Yet the question lingers. Will Canadians see this as a justified price for sovereignty and Arctic security, or will they view it as an excessive gamble with taxpayer money? In other words, is the promise of an Arctic fleet worth the sacrifice it demands at home? If you've made it this far, you probably care. Consider subscribing to stay updated. If the staggering cost of the project raises eyebrows, the logic behind it rests on a principle Prime Minister Mark Carney has repeated again and again. Defense must also feed the economy. In his view, national security is not only about ships and submarines patrolling the seas, but also about creating high-quality jobs and building industries that can stand on their own. That's why every proposal is being judged not just on military capability, but on economic return. Industry Minister Melanie Joly has hinted that the submarine program could set a new benchmark for what Ottawa calls industrial and technological benefits, meaning contractors would be expected to reinvest heavily in Canadian facilities, training, and innovation. Hanwha, for instance, has gone so far as to promise joint production and a full maintenance hub built on Canadian soil, a pledge that could transform regions like Halifax or Ontario into naval industrial centers for decades to come. The vision is ambitious, defense dollars flowing directly into domestic paychecks with new supply chains taking root inside Canada's borders. But here's the twist. If defense is meant to be the engine of economic renewal, does that risk turning strategic choices into political bargaining chips? And when billions are at stake, who really benefits? The Navy on patrol or the industries on shore? From Europe, Germany's TKMS steps forward with a pitch that blends proven engineering with untested promises. Their offer centers on the Type 212CD, a joint German-Norwegian design crafted with the harsh demands of the Arctic in mind. For Canada, a partner already deeply embedded in NATO operations, the appeal is clear. This submarine is built to slot seamlessly into existing alliance structures while offering advanced stealth and endurance. The 212CD relies on an air-independent propulsion system powered by hydrogen fuel cells, a technology that allows it to remain submerged in silence for nearly 3 weeks. At around 2,500 tons, it's relatively compact, giving it agility in icy waters, where maneuverability can matter as much as endurance. Its compatibility with NATO systems also means fewer integration headaches, at least on paper. Yet, beneath the strengths lies a critical caveat. The model Canada would be buying doesn't actually exist in operational form. The 212CD is still in development, with first deliveries to Germany and Norway not expected until well into the next decade. For Ottawa, that raises a thorny question. Can a country facing urgent Arctic challenges afford to pin its hopes on a design that may not reach Canadian waters until 2032 or even 2033? And if delays mount, will proven technology start to look more like a gamble on the future? Across the Pacific, South Korea's Hanwha Ocean presents a very different proposition, one built on size, range, and deterrence. Their KSS-III Batch 2 submarine is a heavyweight compared to Germany's offering, displacing roughly 3,600 tons and designed to operate not just in Arctic waters, but across the Pacific and Atlantic. For a country like Canada, whose maritime responsibilities stretch from the high Arctic to global trade routes, that range could prove decisive. The technology package is equally bold. The KSS-III combines air-independent propulsion with next-generation lithium-ion batteries, giving it the ability to stay submerged for more than 20 days without surfacing. On top of that endurance, it comes armed with vertical launch tubes capable of firing cruise missiles, and even submarine-launched ballistic missiles, a feature that tilts the platform from patrol asset to strategic deterrent. Hanwha has also dangled a timeline that looks attractive on paper: 4 boats delivered before 2035 and the full fleet of 12 before 2043. For Ottawa, that speed could close critical capability gaps at a time when Arctic competition is heating up. But here's the catch. The KSS-III has never been exported. Canada would be the first customer to field it outside Korea. That means potential advantages come with equal parts risk: technical hiccups, unforeseen costs, and the uncertainty of being a trial partner on an untested export path. The question is, will Ottawa embrace the risk for the promise of power or step back toward the safety of proven, if slower, European options? The Arctic is where this entire debate takes on a different weight. In most parts of the world, submarines are judged by their firepower or their ability to deter adversaries, but in the far north, they become something more profound, floating symbols of sovereignty. As the ice continues to retreat and new sea passages emerge, the Arctic is shifting from an inaccessible frontier into one of the great commercial crossroads of the 21st century. Some projections suggest that by 2040, Arctic shipping lanes could carry as much as 15% of global maritime traffic, transforming waters that were once frozen wastelands into some of the busiest and most contested trade corridors on the planet. Russia and China have already shown that they see this transformation as inevitable. Both countries are pouring resources into expanding their submarine patrols under the ice, fielding vessels specifically designed to lurk unseen for weeks at a time in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. Their message is unmistakable. Control of the Arctic will belong to those who can operate there continuously and silently. For Canada, whose northern coastline stretches longer than that of any other Arctic nation, the stakes are uniquely high. Without credible undersea capabilities, Ottawa's claim to vast Arctic waters risks being reduced to paper declarations, symbolic in law but unenforceable in practice. This is why the debate over propulsion systems, endurance, and delivery schedules isn't just technical minutiae. It's the foundation of Canada's ability to assert itself in the north. To patrol under thick ice, submarines must be able to stay submerged for extended periods, detect and track foreign vessels, and signal presence without ever being seen. The choice of platform will determine not just how Canada's Navy operates, but whether the country has the tools to defend its role in a region that is rapidly becoming central to global trade and security. In effect, the decision Canada makes today will ripple far beyond procurement cycles. It will decide whether Ottawa is an active shaper of the rules governing the Arctic's new shipping corridors, or a bystander forced to adapt as others, better prepared and better equipped, take the lead. All of this leads to the deeper question: what exactly is Canada buying with the CPSP? On paper, the program is presented as a dual mission, strengthening national defense while stimulating domestic industry. But peel back the layers, and the balance between those two goals is far from clear. Government officials continue to stress the promise of job creation, arguing that every dollar spent on submarines should also translate into high-value employment and industrial growth. It's a narrative that resonates in communities still reeling from manufacturing losses, where promises of new supply chains and high-tech workforces hold real political weight. The offers on the table reflect that divide. TKMS highlights NATO integration, framing its design as part of a wider alliance ecosystem, efficient, interoperable, and familiar. Hanwha, meanwhile, leans heavily on its pledge to build infrastructure and maintenance facilities inside Canada, giving the project a local footprint that German partners may struggle to match. Yet, with every incentive comes a risk. New supply chains demand long-term investment, while maintenance costs can balloon unpredictably over decades. So, the dilemma remains. Is the submarine project first and foremost about securing Arctic waters, or about reshaping Canada's industrial base? And if both goals are pursued at once, can either truly be achieved without compromise? In the end, the question for Canada is no longer whether to buy submarines. That decision is already in motion. The real choice now lies between Germany and South Korea, two very different visions for the future of Canadian naval power. For the first time in decades, the United States is not the default partner, leaving Ottawa to weigh European caution against Asian ambition. Germany offers a proven NATO-ready design, but one tied to slower delivery schedules. South Korea promises speed, local production, and cutting-edge capabilities, yet the risk of being the first export customer lingers in the background. So, where will Canada place its bet? With the safety of Europe's established path, or the bold experiment of Asia's rising shipyards? And perhaps more importantly, what does that choice say about the country Canada wants to become in the decades ahead? Thanks for sticking around. If you found this valuable, like and subscribe to support more content like this.